This podcast is the result of my passion for languages and for talking to people. I have conversations with language professionals who are willing to share their experience. We focus on their work, but also on how their love for languages has shaped their personal lives. I started my career as a researcher in terminology, but I found my passion for working directly with clients when I lived in the United States and started working as a language consultant for global companies like Sony, Apple, and Google. When I came back to Europe, I was introduced to the world of LSPs, where I had multiple roles: project manager, vendor manager, and terminologist. Find out more on LinkedIn or Instagram and get in touch if you'd like to explore how I can help you with your projects. I am Rita Prazeres Gonçalves, the language worker. This podcast is also available on YouTube. Hi, everybody. I am super happy to be here with Mael and Claudia. So they are creative people who work in interesting fields of translation, but let's hear from them in their own words. So this is Mael. Now we've had our virtual coffee some weeks ago, so we kind of know each other, but I don't know much about his background and all of that, about his translation professional path. I don't know anything about that. So let's hear just a little bit. Who is Mael?
That's a very, very difficult question to answer, especially because I'm super, super curious. I think I have like different lives. So, well, I'm someone who always dreamt to be a polyglot. That was my first goal. I always wanted to be a polyglot, and I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And then I wanted to become a digital nomad. So everything kind of connected. I thought it would be a good idea to be a freelance translator and travel the world. I had this goal when I was a young child I always thought, I hope I will meet the genius from the lamp, from Aladdin. But I won't ask him about money or fame, or I don't care about those things. I will ask him to let me speak all the languages in the world. And then I realized it was a lot of languages. So
they're very realistic, right?
So yeah, so I set a more realistic goal for myself, which is to speak fluently 10 languages. It will take some time, but I'm on my way.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, I guess you're currently learning Portuguese, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So then we have our friend Claudia, as in your friend, because you were the one who invited Claudia to be a part of our conversation, right? So who is Claudia? Briefly.
Hi, yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me. So I am Claudia. I live in Ravenna, which is in the northeast of Italy. And I'm a freelance translator since 2016. And I work from English and French, and I do transcreation, localization, and audiovisual translation in different fields. My main specialization is wine and spirits. Which I've been, I've been training for, and it's a passion in life as well, because I like doing wine tasting and, discovering new great varieties and new wines.
Wow, that couldn't be further from my reality.
You don't drink?
No. I simply don't drink. So we'll talk about that, because as a specialization, it's just fascinating to me. Not the act of drinking wine, but the idea of, translating about wine. So we'll get there in a minute. So Mael, let's go back, not necessarily from when you were a child, but let's say, because then you wanted to be a polyglot. So when it was time to go to university and all of those regular things that we do when we're 17, 18. So how did you decide what you were going to do, and what was it that you did?
So at that time, I was already working in the tourism industry because I first studied tourism before I studied translation.
So when you were 16 or 17? No, right? So before?
Oh, you mean before? How did I decide to become a translator?
No, to go to university. So what happened when you first went to university? The first time, if you
so the first time I studied tourism, because I wanted to find a path in which I could both travel the world and speak multiple languages. So I went for tourism. But I loved it. I worked in the tourism industry for like something like 7 years. and I really enjoyed it. But
in what capacity? So were you working in hotels? Were you a travel agent?
All sorts of things. I worked in in travel agencies. I worked as a certified tourist guide. I worked as a receptionist in luxurious hotels. Different kinds of stuff. But I kept thinking, okay, that's great, but I don't practice enough I don't use enough my language skills. So maybe I could do something else. And that's when I started thinking about translating and interpreting.
And then what happened? What steps did you take?
So I studied translation in Brittany, northern Western France, and I started to specialize in marketing and tourism because it would already make sense, as I already had a network in this field and I knew, let's say, the terminology, and I knew my stuff. So I specialized in marketing and tourism from scratch. From the very first day I became a translation student, and I really, really liked it. So I just went for it.
So then, Claudia, when it was time for you to choose your path in terms of studies, university, all of that, so what happened? Did you study translation to begin with, or not so much?
Yes, I did. I did my master's in translation and interpreting, and first I did my bachelor's degree it was in Italy, so it was modern languages, Italian and English and French and literature. So it was like broader. So I didn't do translation in my bachelor degree. Then I went to London to the UK to study to do my master's degree in translation and interpreting. And actually, yeah, I always loved languages since I was a child. So at the beginning, I wasn't sure I wanted to follow a path in languages, but then for me it was, I don't know, I was sure I wanted to do that, to study languages, and then eventually doing at the beginning I wanted to do interpreting first, but I decided to do translation and interpreting so that I could have more choice. Then actually after my master's degree, I worked as a project manager in 2 different translation agencies.
You did?
Yes. And the first one, I was a project manager in the interpreting department, which was quite fun. Also because interpreters, compared to translators, they are more talkative. They like to talk. Instead, I remember translators, when you called them, they didn't pick up. They would, please send me an email. I don't want to talk over the phone. Instead, interpreters were so fun. And I remember there was this interpreter who really liked to chat. He said, yes, I'm ready for tomorrow. I even got my nails done. So I'm really ready for the meeting. But the second agency where I worked was mostly focused on transcreation, copywriting, marketing, translation. And that really gave me an idea of what I wanted to do next as a freelance translator. And then eventually I never had jobs as an interpreter, something at the beginning, but then eventually I specialized more in translation and transcreation.
So Mael, how was it to get since Claudia started by being a project manager, so how did you start your career in the translation industry? How did it happen? As a freelancer? Did you work in-house? Did you send your cold emails? What did you do?
So I started as a freelance translator, but so I already had a few experiences as a project manager because during my master's degree, I did some work placement with translation agencies based in Paris. So I already had, let's say, a glimpse of how things would work. But I did start in a very, very, very complicated context.
Wow.
Because
was it a war or something?
Kind of. So I specialize I specialize in creative translation in general, so marketing and transcreation. And my main focus, my main area of expertise is tourism. But I launched my freelance business in 2020. So it was right in the middle of the pandemic, which means that people would stop thinking about exporting stuff and translating ads. Everything was running really slow, and especially in the tourism industry. And I was on this niche of translating marketing content for translation tourism experts. So starting out was really, really complicated in this context.
So, but then what happened?
So then what happened is I sent literally hundreds of emails, targeted emails. I found lists of translation agencies based in specific countries where my source language would be spoken and where my target language, French, would be useful. So I went for agencies in Switzerland, in Luxembourg, in Belgium, and I pick up the phone and I just call them. I'm a weird translator because I love people. So I just call them. I love it. So I called people, I called project managers, and I introduced myself. And I asked for a direct email. And then I said, I follow up. I sent my resume, and that's how it went.
So who were the first people in abstract who decided to just hire you, since we were in the middle of this specific situation? Was it an agency, a direct client, or one of those PMs you had talked to?
It was an agency based in Scotland, but they didn't contact me for what I expected them to contact me. I thought, okay, I have years of industry as a receptionist, a certified tour guide. So people will contact me to ask me to translate leaflets or websites for hotels, but they contacted me because they noticed I had volunteered as an interpreter in refugee camps in Sicily. And they needed someone who knew the terminology and the context, because they needed to translate asylum requests. So they sent me asylum requests to translate. They had the volume was pretty big, actually. So they kept, like, from the first day, they sent me something like 10,000 words. And they already asked me, okay, after this project, would you be available for another batch? And it went increasingly.
So instead of translating for people to go and have fun, you were actually helping people solve their most immediate and complicated problems in the asylum requests. Wow, I was not expecting that. You see, this is why I like doing this. That's really funny. I mean, that's not funny, but it's just the context, right? Just very interesting how you came around to actually do something like that, which is far away from your specialization, but it was in your background somehow. So this is what I always say, right? Everything that you do is your career, right? And you bring everything that you have. So speaking of bringing, Claudia, you stopped being a project manager because you wanted to, or because the contract was over, or what happened? What happened there? You weren't happy with being a project manager?
Also, because I think after a while, it's quite, always the same. Well, actually,
where did you work? Tell me about it. That's not.
Well, it's always, I have to. Well, actually, the second agency where I worked, that's where I learned a lot about transcreation, because I had to prepare all the files, ask questions. I have to be very analytical, and it's not like you receive the project, you just send it to the translator and then back to the client. There was a lot of QA from my side as well, so that's where I learned a lot. But but after a while, it was always not very creative on my side. That's the thing. So I wanted to translate myself, and that's why. And actually, I decided to move back to Italy as well, in an area where there are many.
These companies were in the UK,
in London, see. And so, in the area where I live now, there are many agencies, big agencies. So, but then I wanted to try and be a freelancer. And I was quite confident, because after 2 years working for agencies, I kind of knew how to apply to translation agencies, what project managers wanted from a translator. So I was quite confident, and it took me some time, but then eventually after 1 year, I was working full time as a translator. So
what was your approach? Also the cold emailing, or did you talk to the agencies you used to work for?
Well, yes, I did. I started with the agencies I was working as a project manager, and then also I knew the good agencies in the UK. So You know,
there
because
is a list of good agencies in the
well,
UK.
when you work in a translation agency, you know which other agencies pay good money also the translation agency that don't pay good money to translators. So I just didn't apply to those. So yes, I actually had a list. I knew other agencies and I applied to them, and that's what I did. I didn't think about direct clients at the beginning because I wanted to practice a lot. So translate, and so I wanted to do it with agencies because it was easier. You know, you don't have to take care of the customer relationship. You know, it's more time consuming to have direct clients, even though of course it pays more. So at the beginning, that was what I was doing. And still, my main clients today are agencies, but what I do mostly is, since I work in localization, I'm part of localization teams. And one is a direct client because they have their own localization department. So it's kind of an agency, but within the company because they know what they're doing. So I don't have to explain everything, you know, the most normal things for translators, so they know what they're doing, but still they pay more because it's a direct client. But yeah, it's mostly agencies still because it's easier. You don't have to do all the customer relationship and but in the wine industry, which is the one I've been specializing for a couple of years, my objective for this year is to find direct clients in this field.
I believe you. So then, Mael, what happened when you got into a more regular type of living after the pandemic? Did you continue with your activities with the asylum requests, or did you move into your desired field of tourism?
Well, actually, I really enjoyed translating asylum requests, and that's something I wanted to do originally. I just didn't market it, let's say. I made it clear on my resume because I really agree with you. Everything that we do can be an asset at some point. But the thing is, I thought there was no market for it because very often NGOs and associations say they have a very limited budget. So I kept going with this because I really enjoy those projects. But the thing is, after some time, it was a partnership between these ministries in Greece and this translation agency. So as long as the partnership went on, I kept translating those files for something like almost 2 years.
Wow.
But then I still search for other customers in the tourism field and in the marketing field. So now I mostly focus on those two fields: marketing and transcreation and tourism.
So what about Claudia? You say it was 2 years ago that you started, specializing in this wine industry. So what happened there? Was it personal life interfering at work or work interfering with personal life? What came first in terms of wine?
Well, I really wanted to specialize in something because, well, of course, it is very important to specialize. And I have a friend of mine who is studying enology in Florence, in Italy. And he told me there was this workshop about English terminology in the wine business. So I said, okay, it's interesting. I'm going to go. It was just one day. And there I met this teacher who is an educator in the wine business of this qualification provider that is called WSET, which is the Wine and Spirits Education Trust, and it's an international institution and is really known worldwide in the wine business. And it's mostly for people that are actually working, selling wines, making wines, winemakers as well. So I said it's very interesting. It was going to be in English, and actually the educator is really lives just 2 doors away from me, so it was very, very close. So it was perfect because in the city where I live, it's not that big, so there are many opportunities for education. So you normally have to go to Milan, but in this case, it was just in my city. So I decided to do it. I did the first level, which was just 1 day or 2 days classes and then exam. Then I did the second level, and then the third level was a big step because you have to it takes some time. So you have to do wine tasting of 80 different wines. And then you have to do a blind wine tasting where you have to describe the wines that you taste. So it was very interesting, very hard to study and work at the same time. But it was really worth it. And it's really well-known qualification. And I've met also other translators that work in other language combinations that have done this qualification. So I have a network of people working in this industry, and it's very interesting. And so, yes, it was a passion first, and then I decided to study more. You have to keep studying because it's, a lot of things to learn. And then, yes, so that I decided to use this knowledge to provide translation services in this industry.
So what came first? Did you go to the agencies and said, well, I have this specialization, I work in the wine business, or was it the other way around? Did they request something and you were like, oh yeah, I can do this?
No, yeah. Actually, now I haven't applied to agencies for a while because I have a steady workflow, and actually there are agencies or also other clients that contact me on LinkedIn. So there was an agency I was already working for, and they do have some champagne brand that they work for. So it was very interesting, and I also got to do. Thanks to a recommendation by Mael, by the way, to do a vintage in the Champagne region 2 years ago was already, yes. So I went there to do the grape harvest in the Champagne region, which was very nice. And it's very technical field. So even though this was more of a marketing agency, the marketing translation agency, even though it was quite creative because you had to describe all the the flavors and taste, still it's very technical. So if you don't know how the champagne is made, you can make a lot of mistakes. So it's you have to know the marketing and the technical facts. So that's what I like, because I don't like too technical. I like the technical stuff, but also the creative side of it. So, and it was mainly agencies so far. And then I contacted others saying, I'm specialized in this field, and they sent me work in this field.
Wow, that is fascinating. So, Mael, Claudia lives in Italy, but she's actually Italian. So she traveled to the UK, she came back, but you are French and you're living in Italy, right? Is it close to Claudia, or?
In the same city.
In the same
we
city.
live in the same city, yes.
Right. So why did you go to Italy specifically? I mean, you were in France, in your home country, and then you just traveled to Italy. Did it have anything to do with your passion for languages, or was it a passion for something else or someone else? Or what happened there? Why did you move to Italy? I know about moving for all sorts of passions.
So the thing is, I travel extensively in general. Right now I travel up to maybe 4 months a year. But some countries, even though I've been to many countries, let's say there are 3 or 4 countries that really made me a different person. Three or 4 countries that I really feel connected to those countries. And Italy is definitely one of those. I really love Italy. I fell in love with Italy 7 or 8 years ago. And so I started traveling there. And the more I would travel there to practice my Italian and meet people, the more I liked everything, the people, the history, the culture. And I thought, okay, one day I would like to live in Italy. But the thing is, Italy is a very, very complicated country to live in. There are so many, the economical situation is pretty bad. The working culture is pretty toxic. There are a lot of issues. So I thought, okay, I will move there once my business will go well, not before. And I was traveling all around Asia, actually. And then the pandemic hit. So I went back to Europe. And then as soon as the border with Italy reopened, I went to Sicily, in southern Italy. But there again, I didn't really like it there. I love to travel there, but living there was complicated. So my friends from Ravenna told me, okay, you should move and come and just like stay in the same city as we are. as we are. So I moved in Ravenna maybe 3 years ago, roughly 3 years ago. And that's how I met Claudia, because the first thing I've done as a people person, I opened LinkedIn and I just searched translators Ravenna, and I found her and I sent her a message. Hey, I'm new here and I'm also a translator. We should meet and have lunch together. And that's how our friendship and collaboration started.
Yes, exactly. Let's talk about the collaboration, because you're friends, you're colleagues, and Claudia was just mentioning that you had something to do with some of the most exciting things that she's done in the last few years. So how did you come to the conclusion that you could work together? Because you work in like reversed language pairs, right? So basically Claudia does from French into Italian and you do from Italian into French, something like, with English, of course, both of you, right?
Yes.
So how did you come to the conclusion that maybe you could, help each other, support each other, and also, pass on some work or some references and all of those things? So how did you come up with that idea? Was it just by meeting Claudia? It was like, oh, this woman is amazing, I'm going to start working with her.
So yeah, I really like her vibes. Let's say I thought she was super nice and very professional, and I felt inspired, and I thought, okay, yeah, maybe we should do something together. And also the fact that, like you mentioned, we work in the opposite combination. I translate from English and Italian into French, and she does the opposite. And we both work in the marketing field. So I thought it would be a good idea. And the thing is, as I said multiple times, I'm a people person. I really love to connect with people, and I even teach networking at ISIT Paris. So I know a lot of people in the industry, and that's what I immediately thought. I will try to help her connect with a good person. So when she told me, for instance, I would like to go to Champagne to see how things work, I just asked people I knew there, and I knew someone who had a wine yard there in Champagne, and that's how things worked. And then Claudia, one day she told me, okay, I know someone who needs a French translator. We could work on this project together. That's how it works.
That is very nice to work with your neighbors, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I suppose. So, Mael, what about your being a polyglot project, right? That's where the Portuguese language comes in, because I know you have recently been to Portugal and you are learning Portuguese, which is always a funny thing to me when people decide to learn Portuguese. I already told you, but I'm not going to get into that again. So how's that going, right? So you moved to Italy to enhance your relationship with Italian, right? So what else is going on in the language domain right now?
So right now I speak 7 languages, obviously at different levels, because you can't have a near native level or in more than let's say a few languages. But I do speak fluently those 7 languages, and my goal is to speak 10 languages. And I'm also writing a book about language learning, because I feel that so many people think it's really difficult to learn a language. And to me, it's not. I'm not someone who could, let's say, study quickly, get good grades at school, or I'm just someone who's really passionate. So I developed some methods, and I thought it would be interesting to share it with people. So I'm writing a book about it.
So what's your specific motivation to learn each one of the languages that you chose to learn? Because it's not like, well, with so many, how do you pick and choose from all the languages available?
So it's always related to the culture. So the broad motivation is connecting with people, because I realized that many people don't speak English, or their English is not that great, and I'm not a native speaker, so I also make mistakes, and it would be nicer to connect with people in their native language. And then I choose based on something I liked about the culture. Or I also choose some of the most spoken languages. So English and Spanish were obvious choices, because, French, English, Spanish, and Arabic are the most spoken languages on earth. And then I picked Italian because I just love art history and la dolce vita in general, it's Italian lifestyle, it's nice weather, nice people, good food. So yes, there's, let's say, in every language I learn is related to either someone I've met while traveling, like I befriend people, and then I think, okay, I will learn your language because next time I will crack jokes in your native language. So either it goes this way, I make friends with people, or I fall in love with people who speak a certain language and then I learn their language, or I just like something about the country, or I really like, for instance, Oriental music and Oriental food. So I thought it would be nice to learn Arabic so that I could read about it and learn about it directly in Arabic. That's it. There is always a connection with either the culture or the people.
What about you, Claudia? Do you, like, besides from your passion for wine that we don't share, so what else do you do, in your, not only necessarily your free time, but things that for you are relevant, languages or cultures or traveling? So what else do you do besides the wine tasting and the wine translating?
Well, recently, I've started to attend more translation conferences as well, which at the beginning I haven't thought about it, because I said, well, I know how, to contact the agencies, and then, I'm working, so I'm fine with it. But then I don't know if it was because of the pandemic, I felt more and more, and also because, this job, you're always working by yourself. I wanted to connect more with translators, so I did attend my first conference was in Italy, in Pisa, which is close to Florence. It was a conference that they don't do it anymore, but it was, the Giornata del Traduttore is like the day of the translator. And I enjoyed it. And then I went last year it was in Italy, but it's an English association, the Mediterranean Editors and Translators. They did a conference in Mantova. And this year I'm gonna go to the BP conference, because I met a lot of people in Mantua, and they were so nice. I even got some referrals for jobs from people. So and actually, it wasn't even my point, because I just wanted to meet people. And actually, going back to wine, there were a lot of translators specializing in the wine industry that were attending. So I just wanted to meet people. And so I'm gonna go in this year to this other conference. So this is what I do, mainly related to languages and translation. At the moment, I'm not learning new languages, even though I wanted to learn Portuguese too.
Oh,
It's been on my bucket list for a while.
Definitely Italian is not on my bucket list. So,
but I understand why. What's the point? Apart from
I guess there is a
culture.
point. There would be a point, but
Yeah, for
it's
the culture
definitely
and
not within my plans to learn
no worries.
languages or
We're
anything
not
like that.
offended.
Yeah, I mean, you have the whole world saying it's the most beautiful language in the world. So why would it be? I have to say that if I could learn, just like Mael said, just my fingers or the genie or whatever it was, my two languages would definitely be, I have no doubts. Number one, German. Number two, Arabic. So these are my two favorite languages in the world that I don't know, right? Because my favorite language in the world has to be English. I'm very public about it. It's true. So I understand, right, that you're not learning languages. I've actually been to those necks of the woods, landed in Milan and then went to Verona, then went to Florence, went to Pisa for the day, but definitely going to Venice was like the highlight of my Italian vacation. I couldn't believe it.
I know, me too. Actually, I'm Italian, and I've been to Florence to Venice so many times. But like I remember when I was living in London, I went there for a wedding, which was, oh my God, it was amazing. And I remember I got out of the station and
the train station,
Venice
right?
was the train station. And I said, now I know how people like non-Italian people feel when they get to Venice. And, you know, I had been there for many times before, but I don't know, I saw it with different, you know, different eyes, and I was every corner I was, oh my God, this is so beautiful. So I can understand how,
yeah,
you know,
for me it was
all the
shocking,
feel.
exactly what you're describing, getting out of the train station and like, the water is right here.
Yeah, I love it. It
It was
was
the
so beautiful.
best shock of my life. So it was really, really nice. So from all the 4 or 5 cities I've been to in Italy, that's definitely my highlight. It was just amazing. You don't need to do anything, just stare at it. You know, it's
Exactly.
just,
Yeah.
I didn't care much about anything else because it was just, and then I didn't know about the islands, and I went to the islands, and then my hotel was actually one of the islands, and it was great. Then we went to Murano, Burano, all of those things. So that was a lot of fun because I love going on boats. So I was very happy with all the water around me. So that was just my favorite experience in Italy. So that's how it's going with my Italian experience. I liked the place, but the language is not probably coming my way anytime soon. So are you also thinking about coming to Portugal, or why would you learn Portuguese?
I don't know. I think well, my manager when I was working at a translation agency was Portuguese, and I could hear them speaking Portuguese all the time, and I said, I like this language.
Portuguese
And then I
people in
had,
London, that's very unusual. Just kidding.
yeah, they were. Oh,
There's
okay. Oh,
lots.
there are many, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, yeah. And then I don't know, I had a flatmate that was Portuguese. I don't know, I liked the language and I wanted to learn. And I went to Portugal, well, to Lisbon twice, and I really loved it. Really fell in love with Lisbon. And then I don't know, I think because I'm Italian, I speak French, a little bit of Spanish. I thought, well, it's not going to be too hard, but the pronunciation in Portugal, it's like you basically don't pronounce vowels, so.
We eat them.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's I guess because of the culture and yeah, the similarity kind of to other languages that I speak.
And now, because it's just normal that people say that they enjoy Portuguese in Portugal, it's just a new thing, that it's a reality that was not present in our existence as Portuguese people, to have other people wanting to learn the language and visiting massively. And this is like a new thing. So we know that for some years this will be a trend, and then only God knows what will happen. But hey, so if you need any assistance with your Portuguese learning, let me know.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, you guys. It was great to meet you. Thank you so much, Mael, for introducing me to Claudia. And now I can say that I know translation expert who is a wine expert too, right? So this is a combination. I'm not sure I had met someone who had this specific combination. I suppose a lot of people translate about wine, but it's not like they get into the groove like that, I suppose. So congratulations on doing that. I love it when people mix their personal lives and what they like to do, and you know what they do for their work. So that is for me the ideal situation. Sometimes you don't even know if you're working, if you're, you know, having fun. So I guess that is the ideal situation. So thank you so much, Mael, for having this idea. And I hope that you guys learn your Portuguese. Like I say, if you need anything, I'm here to talk about it and talk about those vowels and all that stuff. Yes, because I know that it's pretty complicated compared to other versions of Portuguese, where you can actually have the opposite, where the vowels are very, very open and very easy, or much easier to understand. Not very easy, because I don't believe in anything very easy in languages, but that's just what I think. But for sure, let me know if you need anything, and I'll see you around. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.